Hello, everybody. This is James Diboe, the Sculptor, dedicated to original peoples as always. We got a special guest on. He's been on before. This is Patrick Graham. How you doing, my brother? Are you okay?
Yeah, man, I'm good, and it's always good to have these discussions with yourself, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
Been looking forward to this one for a while.
definitely. Well, today anyway, we're going to be discussing. We usually I speak to you about being an actor, writer, poet, and many other things. But today is speaking about your trip to Egypt, Kemet. So. First of all, let's walk you through the beginning of your trip to Egypt. This has been an anticipated trip. I know we talked about it a long time ago. So we go from the beginning now. Where's the first place in Egypt that you landed?
When I arrived, I went to Egypt in November, just gone, 2023, and I touched down in Cairo Airport, and it was late at night. Time we got to the hotel, it was about 4:30. But within a few hours, by 8 o'clock, we were out the hotel on our way to the pyramids. There was
Yeah,
no sleep. It was just straight in, relax for an hour or two, and then it was up.
yeah. So in the beginning, anyway, like I say, I'm fortunate to go to Egypt myself about a month before October, and I got there in the middle of the night, just like yourself. And I know that you stayed in rooftop pyramid. That's where I stayed in myself. So I'm assuming that you seen the pyramids in the nighttime before you seen them in the daytime.
Well, no, because when that hotel that I had by the pyramids, that was actually after we come back from Luxor. We changed hotel because we didn't
Right.
like the hotel. We was only in that hotel for one night
Okay.
in Cairo, and we didn't like that. So when because I went with my son for his birthday, I took him for his birthday, although it was a multiple birthday present for myself as well over all the years. But we stayed in Cairo for basically, we arrived that late at night, went to the pyramids, saw the pyramids, went inside the Great Pyramid of Khufu, um, saw the Sphinx, the temples, and so on. And then we went to Cairo Museum. And when we went back to that hotel, we only stayed the night because the next day we flew to Luxor and stayed there for a few days. And then when we came back to Cairo the day before our flight was due, we booked a new hotel, which was right on top of the pyramids, basically.
So what
You
was
know,
it? So what was it like then for you? First seeing the pyramids, first seeing them.
well, for me, it was a dream since a child. The first time I saw a picture of a pyramid, I've always wanted to. When I've seen how little people look standing next to it, I thought, wow, that's something I've got to go and see. And, I'm a man who doesn't really like flying, so I don't travel that much. But in that week that I went, I actually flew 6 times. So it was quite an experience, but it was well worth it. But when I first, like when we were driving up to the pyramids in the taxi, and they just dominate the skyline from the Cairo city. As you're getting close to them, you can see them just massive. You know what I mean? And when you got there and got out and walked up to it, it was just, to be honest, I was actually a little like I am now, just lost for words. I couldn't really put it into words. I was just looking and saying things like, wow, and just shaking my head because it was just like, one, it was just, I couldn't believe after all them years I was finally there. And secondly, for all the how it looks on television, to be there yourself in the flesh, it was just, I said, it was just, it was moving in some ways, you know what I mean? It was just like a real moving spiritual experience, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I said, just hard to put into words because I was just so in awe of the structure and the size of all of them, because even the smallest of the pyramids is big, but you know, um, Khufu's pyramid is only a few meters difference with Khafre, his son's pyramid, but that being the major and the first one of the great pyramids in the Giza Plateau was just a sight to behold.
Yeah.
And I've seen people inside it on TV where they've got to crawl through a little small passage before they can stand up, and it looked very tight. And I always used to say, "Ooh, if I ever went there, I'll just admire them from outside. I don't fancy myself crawling through that little hole. But when I didn't realize you could actually, tourists could go in there, I thought that was just archaeologists making documentaries who could go in. And when they said you could go in, I was like a little kid in a sweet shop with loads of money. I was like, what? Well, let's go with it. And it was, you had to like stoop down, not necessarily crawl, but stoop down. So you know, it was only about maybe 3 foot high, just over 3 foot high. And you had to walk, stoop down for a good, you know, someone who was not able to do that couldn't go in there, obviously. But you'd have to walk for maybe crouch down for about 40 meters before you could stand up.
Wow. And then when you actually got in there now and you're inside the pyramid, what are the sort of things that you've seen in there?
Well, it was just a thin passageway. And when I
Yeah.
say thin passageway, you're talking about three, not more than 4 foot in width. So when someone was coming back the other way, you had to like turn to the side to let them pass. So it was quite narrow and it was absolutely boiling hot in there, you know, because it was such a
Wow.
small
Yeah,
space and
yeah.
there was lots of people in there, you know, all walking single file because you couldn't walk side by side. And so it was a thin passageway and you could see. I've actually got a little video. I'm not sure if we'll be able to view it, but I've got a little video which shows um, the inside when we was walking and I was just talking and, you know, not really saying anything too constructive, but it was just, again, it was just that awe saying, wow, this is magnificent. Just, you know, just admiring. When I say the craftsmanship, the size of the stones that were in there and the fact that I was inside the Great Pyramid, it was just, as I said, it was just, it was almost ridiculous, you know what I mean? I just couldn't, I've never envisaged myself being in there. And then
Yeah.
to be in there and see it the way I've seen it on television, it was just, I said, I couldn't even put it into words. Even on the video, I was saying, well, I can't explain it, just make of it what you will. There's the pictures, there's the video, because I say it's a very thin passage. And if I can get the video up, I can show you, it's only like a minute clip or so, but
Yeah.
it's just to give people an insight into what somebody sees when they go into the Great Pyramid.
It's funny how big these pyramids, especially the Great Pyramid in particular, getting to touch you and like this. I mean, I had to think twice about things. I was looking at it and thinking, like, how did people have this type of knowledge back far, like close to 5,000 years ago? So it's deep. And then I was speaking to some Egyptologists out there, and I did say to them, I said, "What's like?" She was quite an open-minded person, actually. She was a Coptic Christian, so she
Hmm.
was saying, like, well, the failure of Hollywood, and also the not just the whitewash, but talking about like when people say silly things like aliens built them, people from other planets. She was like totally against all that. But what she did say is that there's a possibility that these people knew how to time travel and they had like it's not just about advanced technology. It was about like the pineal gland, and they were able to connect really deep to the universe, especially like obviously align with the stars. She was actually quite open-minded, and so basically not the alien side of things, but these people had some sort of higher dimensional powers. They were able to
Well,
connect.
I know one thing they did have is great building ability. However,
Yeah,
they managed to do that because
yeah,
that's what took me with not just the pyramids when I was in the Valley of the Kings, the Valley of the Queens, going into tombs, and it was just why did you build this? How did you build it? Why did you build it? It's just, you know, walking for over 130 meters into Seti, the first tomb, going down at an angle like this. You know, that's just an amazing feat. Just all
yeah,
cut out, the walls are all painted up, and it's just unbelievable. And then when you get into the chamber, it all opens out big. And, you know, well, let me just show you a quick clip of inside
yeah,
Khufu's pyramid. And for people who are pyramid lovers, they will find the video brilliant because I do. You know,
yeah,
people who might have expected more and big open chambers. That's, you know, we didn't get to them parts. Them parts weren't part of that tour. It was just a thin shaft that leads up to where you see the stones, the support stones, but that
Yeah.
was, you can see that on the video to a degree. But let me just see if I can
Hopefully you
share
can
the
get these
screen
slides
now.
up anyway, up and going.
And
Yeah.
so, can you see that now?
Yeah, I can see your whole screen, but you'd have to make it bigger. So
Yeah, you
yeah,
can
yeah,
see the
that's it.
whole
Yeah, yeah,
video,
yeah.
yeah?
I can see it now. Yeah,
Okay,
that's it.
so
Yeah. Yeah, very narrow.
as you can see, in height, that ceiling above us,
Yeah.
I reckon that would be at least what? Um, 30, 40 feet in height,
Mm.
so um, over 10 meters high, 15 meters high, maybe higher, you know what I mean? It's just, I said, it was just hard to comprehend things. I said, I was just in awe, you know, the size of the stones, the size of them, and the way they overlap each other, as you can see, and that still frame, the way they overlap each other, and they were all placed like that deliberately. You know what I mean? This is a conscious design.
And then your width. What's the width, would you say there? That looks very close, like you said, two people together wouldn't be able to walk side by side, or you'd have to, you know. So how far are you walking for?
You see, that's my son in front of me. And
Yeah,
you see
yeah,
the way he had to move to the side, turn.
yeah,
So
yeah. No,
you can pass and said the passageway is very big. Just a couple seconds left of this. But as you can see, when you walk up there, you just get to the top. I don't know whether you can see my arrow
yeah,
on
can
that
you? Yeah,
picture. And that's where the top of it, where it ends in that particular shaft, that you know what I mean, and that part of the pyramid you enter. But for me, it was an experience and a half. It was just brilliant, mesmerizing, amazing, awe-inspiring. Every word.
yeah. You have to. That's it. Me brown people.
Yeah, I would say getting hot. It was
Mm,
extremely hot in there. It was easily over 100 degrees. You just broke out into a sweat once you were inside that stand-up part. You know what I mean? Because there's people coming and going all day, every day, and the heat in there must just build up. Plus, you're in a little confined space.
and
But yeah, that
also,
was
yeah,
amazing, amazing experience to
yeah.
say the least.
So what did you think of the Great Sphinx?
Well, the Sphinx is a structure that, like the pyramids, like for me, I was saying to my son, I said, before we go, I said, for me, the most iconic and best structures in Egypt are the pyramids, because that's what is
Yeah,
represented by the pyramids. But I said, in reality, when you see some of the temples, you'll think, wow, they're even more remarkable looking than the pyramids. But even though the pyramids are so iconic, you
yeah,
cannot go to Egypt and not see them. You know what I
yeah.
mean? That would be almost a crime. But the Sphinx is, again, it's just a magnificent structure, unbelievable, over 70 meters long from tail to the end of the paws, 30 odd meters in height or something like that, 20 odd meters in height. And just to see the size of the head, the face, it's just looking back in time, you know what I mean? And every time I was walking somewhere, I kept saying, I'm walking where the ancient Egyptians walked. I maybe even walking in some places where the pharaohs walked. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I've got a side-on view image of the Sphinx where you can see. I don't know whether you can see that.
Not yet.
Okay, well,
And
let me
then
just
there's
share
people
that
there who
screen.
say, I know they say the Sphinx is like what 4,500 years ago or something, but it's a possibility that these were 12,500 years ago.
Well, yeah, because there's a
Some
lot of debate
anthropologists, yeah,
and how old some of these structures are, because as
water
most
erosions.
people know, you can't carbon date rock and stone,
That's
so it's
interesting.
based on bits and things they find next to it, and
Yeah,
some of the timelines that they claim they got of old historians. But you know, the Sphinx, some people say it's weathered, the way the body shape of it is kind of curved, and that's being caused by water, and the last time there
Yeah,
was heavy rain
erosions.
in
Yeah,
them areas would have been up to 10, 12,000 years ago.
the
It is
Green
very
Sahara.
debatable,
Yeah,
whether it's 4,500 years old or 12,000 years old. Either way, it's spectacular because it will definitely stand for another 10,000 years or more, if not longer, because these structures are almost, they just come in like they're indestructible. You know,
yeah.
they're just
Because
permanent.
the funny thing is, as well, is when I'm looking at the Sphinx, I understand the nose is being destroyed of it, but at the same time, if you look at like the Nubians and that, they have kind of a bit of a different look to even what the Sphinx has. Like the Sphinx seems like it goes back to some Bantu, Niger, Congo people, because if you look
Well,
at
yeah.
the environment was totally different 10,500 years ago than
Mhm.
four and a
And
half thousand years ago.
and also what we've got to remember as well is people tend to say like there's that thing where a lot of people say the noses are damaged on a lot of statues and it was to hide the blackness. Like I used to believe that, but I don't no longer believe in that because I've learned or understand that due to some of the ancient customs in the past, like the soul traveled through the nose that way, so to deface it would stop someone entering the afterlife by other people who done that to them afterwards. And the reality as well is black people don't have one look. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
they don't
right.
have one look. That's like saying all white people have blonde hair and blue eyes. Everyone knows that's ridiculous to suggest that.
Yeah.
So equally, it's ridiculous to suggest all black people have a flat nose and full lips. That's just not the case.
Well, that's all the
Yeah.
stereotypes, isn't it? Yeah, the Great Sphinx was just an amazing sight to see that, though, So tell us, anyway, we've got some nice slides anyway on the Great
Yeah,
Sphinx anyway.
that slide of the Sphinx, as I say, I think it's about 70 meters in length from the tail to the edge of the paws, about 20 odd meters in height. And the way it sits there, there's a temple in front of it that you walk through to get to where you are now. That's as close as they allow you to get to it, for obvious reasons. But to be able to see it like that, I think is better because if everyone was allowed to go down into right up to it, you couldn't see it in its full splendor. Where
Mm.
there you can see it where no one's in the picture and it's the Sphinx in its
Yeah,
full majesty, you know what I
that's
mean, so
better.
to speak.
Yeah.
And what I liked about, especially when we were visiting the pyramids, many local Egyptians, Arabs came up to like me and my son and saying, "Yes, yes, you are the true Egyptians, Nubian, you like Nubians, true Egyptians," and it was really a nice experience for them to say that because to acknowledge, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
who
Not yet.
the ancient Egyptians were, who built these magnificent structures,
Well,
at a
some of
minimum
them,
4,500 years ago or
that's
more.
people who are being honest, though. That's people who are being honest, where you get some people who want to claim them for themselves, just like you get like Europeans claiming them, and you get the same with some of the Arabs, some of them. But it's
Well,
good that
yeah,
they're recognizing.
there's a lot of slides I can show you. There's a lot of slides. I'm just scrolling through some just to give you an idea of what we've got. So
Quite
let me
fast
just
going
stop
through
on a
them.
few here now. So this slide here is um, from the sixth dynasty. I forget the guy's name. He's not a pharaoh. He was some type of high priest, but he's from the sixth dynasty. Now, if anyone could look on that statue and tell me that he is not a black man,
Yeah.
then they've got a serious problem. And
Even though the nose is
yeah,
partly destroyed, you can
because
still
he has
see
got
the
them
left nostril
stereotype black features
and
that we
the
talked about.
features
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
and that when they say they're wigs, some people did wear wigs because
yeah.
I've got pictures of wigs from the museum. People wear wigs now, but someone with
Judges.
long hair like that,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
dreadlocks, plaits, they're not always wigs. In fact, most people I know with dreadlocks is their natural hair, and I can imagine it was the same back then.
yeah,
Some people did wear wigs for whatever reasons. Maybe they shaved the head off, they caught lice or whatever. I don't know, but
yeah,
all
yeah,
I do know is every depiction of someone with hair to suggest that's a wig is kind of ridiculous, to be honest. You know what I mean? Because there's mummies um, that they have in museums which have got full heads of hair. So
I've seen
clearly,
dreadlocks,
you know,
dreadlocks on some of them
yeah,
still left.
that's it.
Yeah,
So clearly they're not wigs. They're not all wigs. If mummies have still got hair, it's not the wig that they're wearing. It's the natural hair on the head.
yeah. But
You
it's good
know,
that
these are depictions of
yeah,
everyday life. As you can see, the boats, you know, these are people to depict them, black people with little afros. Yeah.
exactly.
You know, I wouldn't suggest the afro wigs, but they are, you know, they're depicting what they look like, the pictures of everyday life. Well, I've used one of them back in the day. I've got a baldy head now, but you know, the top bit here, you know, that's for more thinner hair, that's for more thicker hair, but that's an afro comb
Definitely.
from, you know, a tomb from over 3,000 years ago. And you know, this is in the Cairo Museum. You know, these are depictions of everyday life from going back as far as over 3,000 years ago, just over three, you know, to the sixth and seventh dynasties, and some a bit later on. You know, in the boat again. And the museum is actually riddled. You've been to Cairo Museum, so
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know it's full of loads of these statues. I've only ever seen one depiction of these in a book and thought, wow, that's great. When you go to the museum, there's actually dozens of them in
yeah.
Cairo Museum, and there's several more in Luxor Museum as well. You know, depictions of everyday life in ancient Egypt. Because
Got a very
what
good
we've got to
camera.
remember, you know, people will say, oh, um, you know, look at that hair. That's afro hair. There's
Oh,
the afro hairstyles.
couldn't
You
mistaken
know,
it.
this is the most famous tomb in Egypt is King Tutankhamun. Everyone knows of King Tutankhamun.
Yeah,
It's very small. Picture your own living room. When you go inside Tutankhamun's tomb, it's not much bigger than your living room. You know, or a big sized living room. But compared to some other tombs which open up and are several meters wide, 20 meters wide, 30 meters wide, have different passageways. Tutankhamun's is effectively, you know, one little tiny chamber. Um, Look at the pictures on the wall. You know, they are clearly not Europeans.
but
They're
these taken on
African black people.
was these taken with a digital camera you had, or was these on your phone? The good pictures you see.
That was taken on my phone. That was
Okay,
taken on my phone.
really
Yeah.
good
My
pictures.
phone actually took better pictures than my camera that I had with me. You know
Wow,
what I
yeah.
mean? But what you can see at the bottom of the screen where the arrow's just moving is the lid of his sarcophagus.
Okay,
His body is actually still in his tomb, but it's on the other side. So where that wall's facing, behind me to that wall is Tutankhamun's mummy in a glass case, and so, it's taken out the sarcophagus, obviously, but that's like in a little dip. So where you're standing is on a kind of raised platform, and you're looking over like a railing.
yeah,
But you know, them pictures on the wall, and I'm thinking, wow, that's like 3,300 years ago.
yeah,
Over, you know what I mean? That them pictures were painted, and look at the mastery in them. You know, and what one of the guides was saying is that the way you can see blemishes on some of the pictures, he said it's some type of mold because they say the tomb was rushed because he died so young, and they had to rush his tomb, so the pictures were painted quickly than they would normally do, and that led to some mold setting in on
mm,
them. But it hasn't damaged them even after 3,350 years or so. You know, just look at the images, and when people want to argue that, you know, we don't know what color the Egyptians were, but we know they're not black, or they're not black, they're this, they're that, and you know, it's just
whitewashing, man.
it's actually quite ridiculous.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's 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 you know, look at that. Why would somebody? We've seen images of ancient Greece and ancient Rome, and they look like the people who built them, the
yeah,
statues, the paintings, and these look like the people who built these, the statues, the paintings. It's quite obvious. You know, why
yeah,
would someone who looks like um, a modern day Greek paint a picture of themselves with afro hair and a brown skin? It doesn't make any sense that they would paint pictures depicting another race and not themselves. You know, again, this is still in Tutankhamun's tomb. You know, that's his throne in Cairo Museum. It's only quite small because he was only young when he died. He came to the throne as a child. at 9 year old or something like that. He died at, I think, 19. And his throne is quite small, but again, that's a picture of him and his wife. Again, depicting what he looked like.
Yeah.
So there's his mask, which we was very lucky to get this picture, because in that room you're not allowed to take pictures in
Oh,
this
I know about
particular
that.
room.
Yeah.
That's the one room in the museum where Tutankhamun's mask is. And I can understand why, because everyone was taking pictures. It'd be, it'd just be crazy. You'd never really get to see it. But me and my son managed to wangle a couple of pictures, and we got that one
Good.
and one from the back as well. So,
Yeah.
two great pictures, which
Yeah.
again, you can see a depiction of his hair and long braided plait coming down his back. But really magnificent looking structure
Yeah.
that mask is. It's just, quite breathtaking. And the
Yeah.
Great Pyramid of Khufu, as you can see there, it's just, as I said, look at the size of the people to it. And that's what I'd first seen on TV and thought, wow, I want to stand there and see the brilliance of it. And when you're standing next to it, it looks even bigger than it does on that picture. You know what I mean? It's just something else, which again, you've experienced that, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Amazing.
And that was the view from, this is our second hotel. That's my son there. Um, uh, the boy king, I referred to him as well, was over there, the boy pharaoh.
Yeah. How did he enjoy it? Did he like it?
Oh, he loved it, because he said,
Yeah.
he was glad he went with me, because if he went there, as much as he thinks he knows this and that, he just thought there's the pyramids or maybe the odd little temple. He didn't realize there were so many things there. And we only, as much as we packed into that week, there's so much more to see that
Yeah.
could take you months and months to look at.
Mm.
But that was the view from the hotel roof when we got back to Cairo after coming from Luxor. So,
Amazing view.
other than a building block on some of Khufu's pyramid, you could see the three pyramids, and just where the arrow's circling there, you could see the Sphinx as well. And I sat there most of the day, just staring at them, just talking, staring at them, and talking history. It was just right up until the night time, seeing them in the night. It was just,
Interesting, the nighttime. Like it's landing in the night, like you said, you got them late flights, and it just looks absolutely stunning in the nighttime as well.
yeah, it
It
is. And as
does.
I said,
Yeah.
they're quite a distance away, and they're still massive. They just dominate the skyline. It's just really amazing how big they
Mm.
are. So just to rush through the last few slides, because I've got several slides, but we can't discuss them all because we'd be here forever. We could
Yeah.
stay on one slide. You can clearly see the Africoid features, the
Yeah.
stereotypical Africoid features of more what you said before, the Bantu type of look
Yeah.
of more southern type Africans. But
Mm.
as I said, black people have many different looks, just like Europeans have many different looks. They're not all
Yeah.
blue hair, blonde, um, um, blue hair, blue eyes and blonde hair
That's
type of
true.
thing,
Yeah.
which,
And also going back to a
that is
time. Yeah.
this is a statue of the head first of Queen Hatshepsut, and that's in the Cairo Museum, and she was an 18th dynasty pharaoh queen. We did visit her temple as well, which again was one of them structures I'd seen as a child on TV, which I always wanted to see. That's an image of Tutmosis the First, which was her father, who was obviously a pharaoh, but he didn't have a long reign because he died young in his reign. And later on, she became pharaoh herself after, I think it was her uncle, Tutmosis the Third, who reigned for a short while, or was a regent or something like that. And she became a pharaoh herself and reigned for a number of years. And there's her temple there. And that walk up that hill is something I've always wanted to do. And when I was actually able to do that, and it was just, to me, it was just, I said, I really cannot put it into words, I'm being honest, because it was just, I said, I was just like an overwrought child who just got every present he wanted, they'd asked for Christmas. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Just going and the two main structures I wanted to see, the pyramids and this temple. Pyramid Sphinx and this temple are the main structure, because the Sphinx is all part of the pyramid complex in Giza. You know what I mean? But to
Yeah.
make this walk and to know you know, so in some places there is the ancient stones. That path is like being made to look like the ancient path, but there's certain sections where it is the actual the stone from like when Hatshepsut reigned, 3,500 years ago. And it's just, I said, it's just a sight to behold, making this walk. To me,
Yeah.
that was, and then you've got that final walk again. And, the whole complex is just amazing because from the hotel we were staying in Luxor, albeit very small, you could actually see this temple from the hotel in the distance because we were, not far, like a 5-minute drive. Because this is just the other side of that mountain in the background is the Valley of the Kings and Valley of the Queens. That they're right next to, very close to a temple. And Hatshepsut actually, although there's a Valley of the Queens which has 96 tombs in, and the Valley of the Kings has 62 tombs, something like that.
You say the Valley of the
Hatshepsut's
Queens.
tomb is in the
Yeah.
Valley of the Kings.
Would you say the
She,
Valley of the Queens? What would you say about the Valley of the Queens? Would you say that's more
well, there's
better,
more tombs in there.
more
We
tombs
went
in that?
there as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
So this is the entrance to Karnak Temple.
yeah.
And this gateway, although the picture's not the greatest of pictures, but I just wanted me next to it. That wall is up to 40 meters high and 13 meters thick. And although a lot of it's damaged, it's just the main gateway that's left. It actually runs for over 100 meters long, standing 40 meters high and 30 meters thick. And this is like Karnak and Luxor are described as the biggest open air museum in the world because the temples there are absolutely massive. And as you can see again there, the size of the walls on the lead up to it. And it's just everything about it. It's just amazing, breathtaking. Again, here's a picture. This is inside, if my memory serves me right, this is inside the tomb of Seti the First,
Oh
who
yeah.
was the second pharaoh. Is it the second pharaoh or the first pharaoh? But either way, he was one of the early first or second pharaoh of the 19th dynasty.
Okay.
And again,
Yeah.
these are depictions on the wall of his tomb. And as you can see, it's like back in the day, man, queuing up to go into the Methodist,
Yeah.
being the local youth club. It's just they are what they are, what you can see. And every tomb is just filled with color and brilliance and images like this, which people will still try and say, well, oh, they painted them that color because they didn't have white paint. Well, I can see white paint all over
Yeah.
the structures, and I've read that in books. I've heard it said on documentaries, and I thought, well, how ridiculous when there's images there that clearly depict that.
Yeah, exactly.
And to see these close up, it's just, I said it, for me, it's just breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking. I was just mesmerized by it all. Look at the detail on that again. I think this image is actually from, um, this is either Seti the First tomb or Ramses the Ninth, it's one or the other. But again, that depiction of hair like that you can see, that is a depiction of Afro hair. And what we call, what is Upper Egypt goes down from the Nile, so away from the Mediterranean. So Upper Egypt is going away from the Mediterranean. Um, the Nile Delta is going down towards what they call Nubia, areas called Nubia and Sudan, and towards like where Ethiopia and them type of places would be in the south that we would class as the south. But that's called Upper Egypt. So on a map, you would think Upper Egypt would be going towards the Mediterranean, but no, it's actually the other way. That's Lower Egypt,
Yeah.
and the greatest structures are all further down, going towards Upper Egypt, the oldest and greatest structures. This is actually, as you can see ahead there, like some of the walls, as much as the damage on the walls, and as you heard me saying there, this descends for 130 meters. And it was quite remarkable because when we went in this tomb, it was basically we had the tomb to ourselves. There was about 3 people in it when we entered. But it's the most expensive tomb to visit, but I insisted on going in it. And look at that passage. It goes on for 130 meters. And when we got inside, there was maybe 3 people in there, and they left, and we had the whole temple. See, that image was Seti the First that I showed earlier on. I said
Yeah,
it could be the him or Ramses the Ninth. It was definitely Seti the First. And look at the wall, what's inscribed there. And Seti the First is the father of Ramses the Great,
yeah.
who was Ramses the Second. He is the father of Ramses the Great.
Unfortunately,
And
Ramses the Third, they was being refurbished, and I was a bit disappointed, but I still went in there, and then obviously got a quick few pics, and then I had to leave the
yeah,
place.
okay. Well, this is inside the most colourful temple, or described by the tour guide. And apparently, actually, we had the tour guide we had was the manager of the Valley of the Kings. He was our tour guide for 3 days. He was very good friends with the hotel manager where we were staying. And when he said, I'll get you a very good tour guide, and when the guy come and he introduced who he was, it was amazing because everywhere we went, everybody knew him, the security, the guards, the other guides, everybody knew him. So, he was clearly someone who was well liked and well known, and his knowledge was vast. And he joked that we didn't need him. I could be the tour guide because I had certain information I was asking, and the way I rolled off the tombs that I wanted to see. He was like, how do you know all this? I said, well, I try my best to learn as much as I can, but his knowledge was vast, absolutely vast, unbelievable. But inside Nefertari, who was the principal wife of Ramses the Great. This is inside her tomb. When they say it's the most colourful, it truly is. It's like being inside a cartoon. The colours are so vibrant, as you can see on that image there with
Yeah,
me standing proud next to one of the pillars. And again, it was not many people were in that tomb when we went there. So we had a good free for all. And even the guide inside, there was little rooms where they had them blocked off with bits of wood you weren't allowed to go in because it was empty. And the guide allowed us to go in a few of them and take some pictures and videos, even though you could take them through the gap. To walk
yeah.
in them was really good. And again, that's inside Nefertari's tomb, and that's not to be confused with Nefertiti, who is the wife of Amenhotep the Fourth, or Akhenaten, as he's known as, was later known as. But Nefertari is the principal wife of Ramses the Great. But her tomb is so colourful. It's hard, the lighting in there is not the greatest, so you're trying to snap pictures and look at the same time. So, but I took an enormous amount of pictures in there, so many, it was overwhelming. Pictures and short videos, I've got almost 2,500.
Wow.
There's a lot of pictures of the tombs, the temples, almost every artifact in the museum. I must have took a picture of, or half of them at least. So, this tomb was really, really breathtaking. The colours in there was just magnificent. But some of the lights, like that's a nice clear one, but some of the
Yeah,
lights, the way the lighting in the tomb can
yeah,
interfere with your camera, you haven't got time to keep taking pictures because if a tomb's busy, then the guards inside there will ask you to leave after a certain time, 5, 10 minutes or so. But when it's fairly empty, you can be in there up to, you could stay in there for a week if you, if you, I would stay in there for a week if they allowed me. But it's just unbelievable. So I'm not sure what this video shows, but once it starts, I'll let you know. Okay,
not
that
many
was us going
different.
into Queen Nefertari's tomb.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that many different tombs.
so
No,
that was
it's
just us entering. I'm just rushing through the video. That's just the passageways leading up before you get to the open chambers. And although there's a lot of damage on the walls, there's a lot of enough there that's still spectacular, as you
yeah.
can see. Absolutely. So for me, I was just in child mode. I was just wow, wow, wow. It was just brilliant. This is in one of the tombs of is it Nehemiah or something like that? But what he was one of the he was the overseer of the builders of the Valley of the Kings, and they have a place called Deir el Medina, which is the village that the tomb makers lived in, which is just close by the Valley of the Kings, obviously. And there's ruins there. I haven't got no pictures on this particular slideshow of that, but there's ruins there of the houses they live. But these are the guys who built the tombs, and they also had tombs themselves made and decorated. And this is the inside of one of them tombs, where there'd be more than one of them would have more than likely been buried in there. And the walls again, the colours that are still there are vibrant and alive. You know what I mean?
It's
Brilliant
amazing that
colours.
they'll survive an art, though. It is.
Yeah. That's it, brilliant colours. And there's some images where you see some of the women and the hairstyles. If anyone's familiar with the, I think it's called the Habesha women of Ethiopia.
Yeah, yeah,
They look very, very similar, very much alike.
yeah,
And in Egyptian history, anyway, anything I've ever read or learned about Egypt always tells me people migrated down the Nile towards the Nile Delta, going toward the Mediterranean,
yeah,
and formed the Egyptian civilization. And when you come down the Nile from that direction, you're coming from the places like Ethiopia, where the Nile, some of the Nile begins, the White Nile and Blue Nile joins and forms.
yeah. Even from
And
the foothills and the mountains of the moon, Uganda, Congo areas, and because even like the Nile goes right down toward like Uganda,
well,
So
yeah, that
yeah,
does, yeah,
it's
does.
interesting.
And and these are who the Egyptians said were their ancestors. And the
Yeah,
burial rites, there's a guy called Michael Flinders Petrie,
yeah,
who within European scholars is seen as the father of Egyptology. He spent maybe 40, nearly 50 years visiting Egypt, and wrote over 30 books. With about, I think, about 36 books.
yeah,
And um, he, in one of his books, which was called, I think, The Pyramids of Giza. I think it's simply called that. When you read that book, it mentions in it that for over 500 miles going down as into Upper Egypt, away from the Nile, the burial rituals of the people from them areas are all the same as it progresses into what is now called modern day Egypt. So from,
yeah.
you know, what was called Nubia then, which is now Sudan now, because a lot of these borders and boundaries have been changed through imperialism, colonization, and so on.
Oh yeah, yeah. They
So,
almost make it out like
but
it's they
these are the
try and
images I'm
separate it.
talking.
They try
If
and
you think of
separate,
it,
don't they, the
well, that's
Nubians
it.
from like they were different than the Egyptians, and yeah,
Yeah, if you think of the Habesha women of Ethiopia I was talking about, they dress still like this to this day and wear the hair like that to this day. You know what I mean? So, yeah, some may have wore wigs, but some had the natural hair. Look at that guy. There's many times you see pictures. I know Richard Pryor mentioned it in a
yeah.
documentary I've seen where he says, "Hey, there's such and such," and you're looking at pictures and you're thinking, "Wow, that looks like someone I grew up with from the area." You know what I mean? And you do see that a lot. You know what I mean? A few dreadlocks man who I looked at pictures and I thought, "Wow, that looks like such and such and such and such." And look at these. These are little statues from inside the Cairo Museum. Again, you know, there's a wig. Like, whose hair is that wig? They've made
Yeah,
wigs representing their natural hair, of
yeah,
course. Look at that woolly hair.
totally.
It's hard to get pictures because the light's reflecting in crazy ways in the museum. Like the way they designed the case, it's like they don't want you to take pictures, they just want you to look at it.
Oh, that was
But,
annoying. That was annoying.
I
That when
managed to
you,
capture some
yeah,
pictures. And
yeah.
as you can see, look at that. That's a more clearer one. They're like little twists and dreadlocks. I've seen people like Lauryn Hill, Erica Badu, singers, wear hairstyles similar like that to this day because it is black hair. That's exactly what it is, you know. And these are in the museum for all to see, 3,000-year-old wigs. And I took that picture at the end to show you when people say the Egyptians were white. This is in the Greek period after
Oh yeah, yeah,
323 BC.
Yeah.
So just to put things into context, when Alexander the Great conquered Egypt in 321 or 323 BC, whatever it was, I think it was conquered in 321 and he died in 323 because he died shortly after. But anyway, when he conquered in 321 BC, we'll say, to put things into perspective, the Great Pyramid of Giza at that time was over 1,300 years, approximately 1,300 years before Alexander the Great conquered Egypt.
Yeah, man.
To put things in. In fact, I'm actually doing myself some bad maths there. Actually, it was over 2,300 years ago
Yeah.
when Alexander the Great conquered the Great Pyramid of Giza. Was that old. So when we think of the ancient Greeks now, yeah, which is just 2,000 years ago type of thing, the period between Alexander the Great and the Great Pyramid of Giza of Khufu is a longer period than it is from now to Alexander the Great's time. That's just to put things into perspective, how old these structures were. So when the Greeks got there, Egypt was ancient to them, very ancient, extremely ancient.
Even look
You
at
know,
the Greek writers who writ about
yeah.
Egypt,
And the
come to
Great
learn.
Pyramids were fourth dynasty buildings,
Yeah.
and the first dynasty goes back to over 5,000 years ago. You know what I mean? From now, so over 3,000 odd years, almost 3,000 odd years from when Alexander the Great conquered Egypt. The first dynasty was then. And
Yeah.
obviously, people didn't just wake up one morning and learn how to build a pyramid. This
Yeah.
knowledge was actually
Development.
amassed over a certain period. I couldn't say how long. It could be 100 years, it could be 500 years, it could be more. But either way, they didn't just develop that type of skill in 5 years. It's quite obvious that
Yeah.
that wasn't the case. But why I showed you that, because there's a clear depiction, and even the style of mummification in the tomb, it's not the same. It's not as sophisticated as the older ancient mummies.
Even the pre-dynastic dynasties, I mean,
Yeah, and there's another one. So these are in what we call the. I always find it difficult to say this word because it begins with a PT, but Ptolemy, Ptolemy dynasty. Who was after Alexander the Great made himself pharaoh over Egypt. And like with any conquering nation, a lot of the time they marry in, or usually more often than not, they marry into the ruling powers in order to win the people over.
yeah,
That's exactly what the Greeks should have done.
yeah,
So their offsprings would have not necessarily been all Greek. They would have been a mixture of African,
that's right.
Egyptian, African, and Greek. So that's why even down to the time of Cleopatra, the seventh, that is the most famous Cleopatra that is glorified in movies. She was actually Cleopatra the seventh. So there were six more before her. Um, there's a Netflix documentary which depicts her as a black woman,
Yeah,
clearly maybe with a white father or a black mother or the other way around, but either way they depict her as a black woman to the anger of many people. But that's a true depiction because she wasn't out and out just, yeah, she was from the Greek rule of Egypt, but these are Madian native Egyptians who are black.
exactly. Yeah,
And people can dispute and argue, and I wouldn't even get into an argument with people because to me, I follow the words of the great John Henry Clark, where he says, "I debate with my equals, everybody else I teach."
yeah,
I like that saying, and if someone's
definitely.
going to come with ridiculous statements that go against the statues, the pictures, and come, you can get someone as dark as myself and do a DNA test and say, oh, so much percentage of DNA is European, so therefore that means I'm not black.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
and that's what they've been messing around with science with some of the Egyptians, and
Yeah,
it's
you got to
just a
be
nonsense.
careful. You got to be careful with the DNA
Yeah,
testing.
yeah, they can do
You
the
know,
test to make sums add up to what they want when they're
yeah,
ready. You know what I mean? Because you know these depictions don't lie. These are what the Egyptians drawn of them. So why would another race draw pictures of people that don't look like them? It doesn't
doesn't
make
make any
sense.
sense at all.
No one in
No.
history has done that, and no one in
Yeah,
history will ever do that. You
yeah,
know what I mean? To draw every picture of somebody else. And you might find, you know, Egyptian pharaohs married into other people other women from other cultures, just like the
Yeah.
English kings and queens did. They would take a wife from here and there to form allegiances with different countries, and the Egyptians were no different in doing that. So you'll find Eurocentric scholars will focus on one lighter skinned Egyptian woman and then home in on that and make out, well, oh, that's what they all look like, which is,
But that's not
nothing
even a
further from
serious.
the truth.
That's not even a serious research when you do that. At the end of the
Well, no,
day.
they're not the frauds, and
Yeah.
it just, as I said, the pictures. When you go there, without going there, you know the evidence is there. But when you go
Yeah.
there, the evidence is so overwhelming; it's unbelievable.
In your
This is
face.
Seti the first tomb, and behind me, as I said, 130 meters you're descending down before you get to the opening chambers of his tomb, where I showed you some of them earlier pictures. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. But landed in Cairo, took in the pyramids, took in the Sphinx, had some lunch, went to the museum, went back to the hotel, chilled out. Next morning, we were up early because we had a flight to Luxor. It took just an hour. If we drove there, it's like a 6 hour drive or more. So we took a flight, 55 minutes. Got to Luxor. Um, Less than an hour of checking into the hotel, we were off to the Valley of the Kings.
Yeah, you got to be
We went to
rapid with
see.
everything, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
With the
There's
time you
no
had
time.
and that.
I wasn't going there to put my feet up and
Yeah,
relax or do anything.
yeah.
It
There's
was
no
constantly
rest.
on the go. Straight to the
Definitely.
Valley of the Kings. Then after the Valley of the Kings, we took in. We went to Hatshepsut's temple. We
Yeah,
seen the Colossus of Menon, which two giant statues. I haven't got the pictures here today up on the slide because there's so many to sort through. It was just impossible to choose which one. So I just took a small selection. But the Colossus of Menon, again very close, like a 5 minute drive from our hotel. Massive structures, like um, over 60 feet in height, if not higher. One of them was damaged and put back together, but they are the two front statues are of Amenhotep III. He was the grandfather of Tutankhamun, the father of Akhenaten. He was initially Amenhotep IV, but changed his name to Akhenaten afterwards. And it's his wife Akhenaten who was the principal wife of Nefertiti. Um, and behind Amenhotep III, there's two smaller statues in the distance, and they are of his wife, Queen T or Queen Tai, depending on how you pronounce it. And she's the one where you see sometimes a bust of a woman who looks like she's got an Angela Davis type afro.
yeah.
That's Queen Tai. And I've been seeing lately pop up on Instagram um, artist impressions of what they look like, and they're just showing a European white woman, and I think, well, that's ridiculous because the statue or a bust of an afro, you can clearly see it's a black woman, and and,
Well, you
and
know
you're
what,
now
right?
doing an
If you
artist's impression of somebody
if
else, and
if
um,
you never go back to Egypt, hopefully you do return. I'd advise you try and get down to Aswan, and you're gonna see actually not just from mummies or pictures and temples. It's just to see the people and go to the Nubian village. And when you go to
mhm,
the Nubian village, you see the people. And yes, you will get people who are non-Nubian that are trying to sell you things that will try and kid you that the Nubian. But I just told them straight, look, I'm here to see the original peoples, and they're suffering the Nubians. The traditions are slowly lacking, still there, but
mhm,
it's a lot changing now. Some of them even drink alcohol, a
yeah.
few drugs,
No, well,
and
it's like a lot of
but
cultures have been destroyed.
but
Like
I would
the
advise
American
you
Indians were
to
destroyed the same way.
next time if you ever do make a trip there, though, go down to the south just to see the living people.
Oh yeah, no, I will
Just to,
definitely have
yeah,
every intention of going back, and because there was places I wanted to see. I did want to go to Aswan.
it's
I
too
also
much to see
wanted to go
everything,
to Abu
Clay.
Simbel. I
Yeah,
wanted to
Abu
go to Abu
Simbel.
Simbel to see Ramses Temple. Like
That's where I'd love to go next, Abu Simbel.
we did see the Ramesseum, which was in um, Karnak and Luxor. But the major Ramesses Temple of Abu Simbel, that's what I really wanted to see as well. But we just didn't have the time
Next
to
time
get there.
anyway. But
But there'll
anyway,
always definitely be
yeah,
a
but
next time.
Yeah, but anyway, there's a James Diboe and discovered and dedicated to original peoples. And if you want to give your last words before we finish up, Patrick,
Yeah, it's as I said, there's
any
so much we
advice for
could talk
people?
about.
Any
I could have this
advice?
conversation for hours and
What
then
advice can you
days.
give people who would like to
The
go?
advice is get to Egypt and see it for yourself, experience it for yourself. It will be a spiritual, heartwarming, awe-inspiring, amazing journey.
Powerful.
Do it, do it. Even
Do
if
it.
only once, do it. See the pyramids, see the Sphinx, see some of the temples in the Valley of the Kings and Queens. You won't regret it.
That's it, man. Get down to the south also.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely.
Definitely. But thanks anyway, Patrick. I've enjoyed this discussion. Anyway, it's powerful. Love your slideshow. Your pictures are amazing.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank
Always
you
a
very
pleasure.
much, Patrick. Anyway, and yeah, look forward to linking up in the